Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, Boris Johnson just addressed the nation very recently, mentioning the new restrictions in place from the coronavirus. This is a bit here from BBC News. Coronavirus, what are the new restrictions and why are they needed? This, of course, comes just a few days after he's decided to put 20,000 troops into London. And if you are anywhere on the south of England, then you can see the military aircraft flying supplies in and out of the country. It's kind of a giveaway when you got grey aircraft instead of the white and the red or the orange that you would have with commercial airliners. And of course the aircraft profile is slightly different as well. But Boris Johnson pointed out in his speech that, hey, we wanted you to follow this advice, but seeing as you're not following the advice, tougher measures, stricter measures are now in place, effective immediately. So, this is that shops that sell non-essential goods, including clothes and electronic stores, will be closed immediately. Libraries, playgrounds, outdoor gyms and places of worship will also close. Gatherings of more than 2 people, excluding people who live together, will be banned. There'll be no weddings or baptisms, but funerals will be allowed. You have to clear out the morgue somehow. And parks will remain open, but people are only to go out to exercise once per day. So, not only were those closures to basically saying you can only keep stuff open if it's for necessities, which means restaurants and food retailers can still be open as long as it's just deliveries or takeaways. So it's takeout instead of eat in. And banks can also be opened. Got to keep the economy going, as well as corner shops, newsagents, convenience stores, supermarkets selling food, that kind of thing. They can still be open because people need to be able to get food, which is one of the few reasons you can go out of your home. The examples for which you can leave your home are shopping for basic necessities, so like food, but as infrequently as possible, and instead people should use delivery services where they can. And thankfully the supermarkets have recruited more drivers and up that to try and help out as many people as possible with deliveries to abide by the new guidance. You can go out for medical reasons, if that's for your own health or to provide health for somebody else, so you are allowed to help out other people. Tell that to supermarkets rationing items if you're trying to help out other people, but nonetheless, that is permitted. You can travel to and from work, but only if it is absolutely necessary and cannot be done by working from home. And you can go out once per day to exercise. So just exercise for a lot of time. Why not? Because of this, police have been given greater powers as well, so that they have social dispersing powers. So if there are more than 2 people together, they can get you to leave and leave one another. Seeing as when you're out, you should be on your own or just with your household, like with exercising as well. So you don't have to be so solitudinal, because if you live with somebody, then there's no harm in being out with them as well. But if you are out for a reason other than work or exercise or food or helping people, then Boris Johnson stated that fines are possible and permitted to be given, similar to what we've seen in France, of course. He hasn't gone as far as to say the same as Italy, which is that you need to print out a document showing why you are outside of your home, but you just have to have a good reason. So it's much more the honour system, essentially. So if you're out cycling, you're probably not going to get stopped because you're doing your bit of exercise. Or if you ever go outside of the house, just make sure that you're running the entire time, and that'll most likely be permitted for exercise. So it isn't an issue. However, of course, a load of green spaces have shut because people can't go to them anymore, seeing as we've had some nice weather because people haven't been working and clogging up the roads, so there hasn't been the water vapour for the clouds to form or the pollution in the air for the water droplets to form around them. Therefore, we've had the nicer weather, which has caused people to want to go enjoy this nice weather in green areas and on beaches, which has caused Snowdonia to have the busiest day in history, that it's known, because people aren't working, of course, but it also means that the public transport is overly crowded because you've got a load of people using it and not a load of people providing it, in which case it's even worse for the spread of the virus. So that is one of the reasons why they say these tougher restrictions are absolutely necessary, given that people aren't following it. People are supposed to be at least 2 meters away from each other, even though it's got a range of 5 meters and will last half an hour after somebody leaves. But nonetheless, that's what's been put in place. And people wearing masks to try and protect themselves is pretty much useless, seeing as it can still get in through your eye, and it is airborne. It isn't just breathing it in. And the one good thing about wearing a mask is if you have an illness, then you're not projecting it onto somebody else. So there is that if you wish to be thoughtful. If it's for air pollution reasons, then you need something quite a bit more substantial than just a regular medical face mask. Also, to combat the effects of coronavirus, the government has demanded that more effort be put into making ventilators into the private companies. So now we're making over 100 ventilators a day just from one private company in the United Kingdom, a British engineering firm. So we can quickly get to dealing with the amount of people that need it, seeing as now the death toll has barely gone over 300. Making 100 ventilators a day will definitely help to save lives in the future, and it is actually then manageable. The idea of not going out as often as we had before is to limit the spread exponentially. It is really to shrink it down to a fraction of how strong it could be otherwise. The reason being that you're in contact with so few people, and it takes so long to make itself known and then be able to spread to other people, that it isn't linear, but it is actually exponential progression or regression. So instead of spreading it to about 400 people over the course of a month, if you do take these precautions into account, you're spreading it to about 15 people instead, which is a phenomenal difference, and of course makes this much more manageable and maintainable. So of course Johnson isn't the first nation leader to do this, given that the whole of Italy has been on lockdown since 9th of March, with people only allowed out if strictly necessary. As I say, they need that documentation. Meetings of more than 2 have been banned in Germany. One German state, Bavaria, has implemented a full lockdown for its citizens. So that meetings is where the UK is quickly going. More and more US states have introduced severe restrictions, with 1 in 3 Americans now being told not to leave home. And Australia has shut down non-essential services, although schools remain open in some states. Similar to over here, where schools are still open for vulnerable children or for key workers, essentially. So for the families that need help raising their children, essentially, the school is still open for them. But otherwise, everybody is to stay home. We're trying to see developments in how they're going to help out people who they're forcing to stay home in terms of income and paying rent and taxes and all that, seeing as it's the start of the new tax year for paying council tax and all that fun stuff. As well as if you're self-employed, then you've got to get all your VAT receipts ready. And that's about it, really, that we have at the moment. They are the latest developments. So the army's in place. You're allowed to travel less. You've got to have a good reason for travelling, and you've been given the reasons of which you're permitted. But it is still a bit unclear as to what exactly is permitted and for how long. What travelling for work is deemed as necessary. How much exercise is 1 bout of exercise per day. These kinds of things don't really have an answer for. Same as buying food, how infrequent is infrequent. All of these are grey areas, because I think Boris Johnson still has hope for the British people and was calling on patriotism of Britain in his speech in order to say that the British people have overcome this before and we can pull together and overcome the coronavirus as well. It might be the most difficult challenge we face in our generation, but our ancestors have shown us how to overcome bigger enemies during their time. So we can do it if we pull on the British spirit. So good on him for being patriotic. And until next time, stay safe, keep care of the ones that you love, and have a good one.